Hi everyone, welcome back to Life Up Education TV. This is Natsune. I'm your host. I'm also the author of the book called The Game Up, The Game of Self-Domination. I'm just currently waiting for my guest to join in right now. Okay, so he's set now. Okay, let's see. So we tried to do this earlier, but something came up, so he had to go. So we're trying this again. So welcome,
Hey,
Thomas. Welcome to Life Up Education TV.
thank you.
You're my very close friend here in Tokyo. So I just kind of wanted to just casually have this conversation. I remember we spoke about future, right? Future is a topic that I'm really personally very excited about, and I feel very strongly about. And I got a lot to say. And I also, actually, I'm gonna give you one backstory of this, okay?
Okay.
So the other day, I was eating with my mom, and we were talking about you actually, and she asked me what kind of person you are, and the way I described you was, I think you have a capacity to see the world from future and history. Like you have the capability to learn um, how it is, like how the world works from the history, and also you have the capability to um, interpret that data, and then basically that makes you more like a macro thinker. So I think you have a very unique understanding and opinion around around how the humanity is formed today from the past, like from the history. And I think you have interest in that. And then I think you have a unique way of viewing the future as well, because you learn from the history. I noticed that you're interested in history a lot, and I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why you can think of future in a very creative way, because as much as future exists, like we develop our creativity and future based on the history, like what we've already created, right? So I think that that's your one of the superpower, is that because you have a very unique relationship, and I guess deeper knowledge, I would say, compared to the average, like deeper knowledge about the history. I think that's why it makes you a more creative person. It makes you more future forward, like future thinking person, if that makes sense. So that's
Well,
just like
thank you
a
very
back,
much, Natsa.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's just
That's
like a
very kind of you to
background
say stuff like that.
of the story. But I'm really excited by the topic of future in general as well, like for me, because future is very future. I was thinking about this too. The future is basically the possibility, right? Like it sounds so cliche, but if you think about it, really, like future is association of possibility, and so to speak, in the opposite side of it is history. Like our past is the association of impossibility, right? But without one another, they can't exist. But
Yeah.
because I'm very passionate about possibility, very passionate about, like, challenging the limit, redefining who we are, like not letting anything to give us the permission to allow us to be who we are. So basically, that's to say that I'm not gonna let people to tell me how much I can be or who I should be, but that
Yeah.
I'm gonna define for myself, right? Like that's something that excites me, and I think future very much aligned with that thinking. So yeah, now without further ado, I guess we'll jump right on today's topic. And one of the things we spoke about the other day, which I found very interesting, was when you spoke about how the business today is predicated on the arbitrage, the difference between supply and demand, right? That's just how capitalism and business works in today's world, given the limited resource that we have. But you were talking about like how that's going to change, right? Like how there's not going to be even a point of trade. Like I was so fascinated by how you thought about it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So this all started when I was really young, you know, like, and I think I was really, you know, in need, and I was desperate, and my mind started going about, you know, what would a world be like? And I think as a Swedish person, you know, Swedish people are not really, we're not capitalist and we're not communist. We're somewhere in the middle, right? Like we're socialists, right?
Right.
So socialism meaning just like you have a little bit more of a human right. For example, education is a human right. You know, being okay, not dying from hunger is a human right. You know, like these kind of things are human rights. So, and in a society where those things kind of are the base foundation of a society, it's a lot easier as a person to just go, okay, well, I have some basic needs, and they're getting supplied by, you know, by funding or money or whatever I have, right? So, and then as a kid, at one time, I was really, really, really in a bad situation. I was totally broke. I was homeless. You know, I was 15 years old. I didn't know what to do. And there was this popular show going on TV. It was called Star Trek. And Star Trek is this TV show that goes on. It's made by, or it's written by a couple of guys at NASA. It's also, you know, together with people from Hollywood. And they wrote this story together, which was kind of interesting. And some of the things that they bring up there are some of the technologies that we have today. For example, they were talking about, this was like in the 80s, the 70s, and you know, in the 90s, you know, where a computer was just like, what's a computer kind of thing. And back then, they were talking about things like, you know, the universal translator, and that was one of the technologies that was in the show. And that technology, for example, you know, it was an AI. It would learn any kind of language in a couple of sentences. So this was a cool thing, and we kind of have that today, like with Google Translate. Sure, it's not an AI that learns a couple of language, you know, a language from a couple of sentences, but still, you know, it's an AI, and it will learn from you. And not only that, it can translate what you say to any language. And this was just like 20 years ago. This was just like unfathomable. You couldn't even think about these things. It was just like, it was space, you know. And
can I stop you there? So that time ago, like, there wasn't any translation, right? Translation technology, none.
No, like translation was like, you would go and get like a book, and then you would
Dictionary.
take each word, and then you would like go through the sentence, like by each word, trying to understand what it meant in another language. And it took forever, you know. And now you just type in a computer, press a button, and you can you understand what it says, or even it automatically translates it for you. So this is a completely different word, you know. And these kind of technologies, I think they were, or presumably they were probably inspired by these, you know, not only Star Trek, but, you know, many kind of things from the, you know, science fiction, etc. And one of the things that was interesting about Star Trek was that in the future, there, you know, in the Star Trek universe, they don't have like things like poverty, starvation, problems like, you know, like hospital, stuff like this, stuff that we take, stuff that we can't take for granted yet, because it's not our human right yet, you know.
But sorry, can I stop you there real quick? So do you think that, I had this like really crazy idea one day, you know,
sure, tell me.
At some point I thought we would lose gender. I thought gender would be luxury, because there wasn't going to be,
oh, that's such a cool thing,
right?
Like what you would like buy your gender, or you could pick it like anytime, you could change.
Ultimate version of humanity, like something that we discussed before. Like
I see.
if the ultimate version of us is to be whoever we want to be at any time we
Yeah.
want to be, right? Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the goal that we're all trying to strive, maybe gender isn't gonna be such a necessary, like a fundamental thing we need to have, unless, because okay,
Oh my
so
God,
if
that's such a
we,
cool thought.
I know, like
That's such
if
a cool
we
thought.
think about it, if we think about the gender from logical perspective, it's needed for the production, like productivity purpose right now, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, you know, there's gonna be certain, I guess, certain levels of cost with that. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what. Okay, so I just wanted to give you some like crazy
No,
ideas.
no, no, no. It's
Because
so
it's,
good. It's so
yeah,
good.
kind of like
Like
similar
these are
to
the
what
kind
you're
of things
talking.
that people are thinking about. Like people are thinking about it. And I was talking to you earlier today about abundance. And these are the kind of things that are, you know, like, can you imagine the amount of resources it would, you know, take or cost or do to change your gender, like on a day by day basis? Let's say that you want to be a girl in the afternoon and, you know, a dude in the morning. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be so much resources, and that, you know, like these things are so costly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the world, if you look at the world 100 years ago, and if you look at the world today, the amount of resources that we use has been like, it has exploded like a gazillion. You know, 100 years ago, having a ball pen was
Mm-hmm.
luxury. A ball pen, that was like, wow, you have a ball pen in your house. That's
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago. You know, thinking about that today, I mean, a ball pen costs you nothing. It you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's just, you give away ball pens. Ball pens have no value.
Right.
And people would, 100 years ago, people would buy ball pens
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of money to them.
Right.
And it was like, I'm getting a ball pen, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you look at the world, and it's the same with radio, like
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago, getting a radio, having a radio in your house, that's a big thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, looking at it today, a radio is nothing. You could buy your friend a radio in a second. You wouldn't even hesitate. Get one on, you know, Amazon for like
Mm-hmm.
$5. You know, give it to your friend, no problem, right?
So then,
But yeah.
mm-hmm. I think I think to get to the fundamental of the discussion here, I want to
Mm,
define a few things. So
yeah.
when we talk about abundance and when we talk about scarcity, like
Yeah.
it seems like how things are cheaper now is predicated on two different pillars. Like the one is technology, right? Like it's just
Yes.
became a
Yes.
lot
Absolutely.
cheaper, and
Yeah.
just technology in a sense that we have more skills, and skills
Yeah.
are cheaper. And
Yeah.
then also material is another form of resource, right? So
Yes.
I just wanted to define those two things to move forward with the conversation moving
Yeah.
forward,
Sure.
because inevitably, well,
Yeah.
what we are saying here is that in the future, those
Yeah.
two things will cost like almost zero, right?
Exactly.
Like
And we're
that's
getting there. Like,
crazy.
look at the 3D printers. Like, this is, you know, this is one of the things that I was talking about Star Trek before as well. Like, if you look at Star Trek like 30 years ago, and they were talking about something called the 3D printer, you know, it wasn't called that. It was called the materializer, you know, which is pretty cool. and now and now 30 years later, we have 3D printers that can build buildings. So, I mean, the technology is just like supercharging, you know, like, and we're getting there. And like you said, one is manufacturing is getting so much cheaper. We can do things and it's getting more efficient, it's getting better. And we're, you know, we're just in the beginning of
Mhm.
this whole digital revolution that's going on. It's
Oh
only
yeah, for
30
sure.
years. Yeah.
For sure. Actually, someone said something. So, you know, in the future, actually, this was Gary, but he said, you know, our fridge would
Yeah.
order beer without
Yeah.
you having to order it. Like, as soon as the beer lands out, it's going to order by itself. Like, that's just smart fridge, you know? Like,
I
that
see. I
idea
see.
of it just crazy. Like, we haven't
Oh, cool, cool.
started on our idea of like where, like we have even no idea, like that we're not even beginning, like at the beginning of what's about to happen, you
Yeah.
know? Anyway, so keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's so crazy. And the idea then, when I was a kid, was that, you know, like we work our whole lives, we strive our whole lives to get something called money. And this is
Right.
so crazy. Like we will basically give away 30% of our lives to make this paper thing, but now it's digital. It's a number in a bank account that is called money. And it's so crazy. You give away 30% of your life for that, to sustain your, you know, basic demand of survival,
but
right?
hold on, like, isn't 30%? It feels higher than that though. Like,
right?
Yeah.
Am I under exaggerating or what?
Yeah, underestimating. I think so. I mean, I think it could be as high as like 70 or 80 probably.
Yeah. No, I know how you feel, man. I know how you feel, buddy. And that's one of the things. Like you feel that your whole life is just going away to get this stuff called money. And then with that money, you'll eat, you'll live, you'll be a place, etc. And when you're a kid, when you're 15 years old, you think that is such a worthless meaning of life, right? You know, why would you ever want to give away 30% of your life to just be okay and be a human being? That's so crazy, right? So when I was a kid, I was thinking, okay, well, when would this ever end? When would it end? When would we not have to work our entire lives to get money anymore? You know? And bang, my idea popped. I was watching Star Trek and I was just like, oh my God, it's when supply is 1 million times demand. When supply is 1 million times demand, why would we ever need money? The same with the radio, the same with the ball pen, the same with whatever. You know, ball pens, the supply is 1 million times demand. You can get a ball pen without any effect of your life. You can get it and you can have a ball pen and you can write something on a paper, you know. And the same is kind of coming along with phones. There are so many phones. Phones is becoming like an abundance. You can get a phone for free from your friend. It might be old, but you'll get it. You know what I mean? So at one time, maybe in the future, sometime, without, like, this has nothing to do with Marxism or anything to do with communism or anything like that, but it will just be gone. It will just be, you know, spending your entire life getting some kind of, you know, money to survive or something like that. It will just like go away when you have 1 million times demand.
But I mean, they have to be fun, like lifeline products though you were talking about. I think, I mean, like, for example, I understand that concept, like I'm 100% the same page. Yeah, but it has to be, the scarcity is still created because we just can't have basic products, right? Like basic products that support our lives. That's why we keep working.
I agree, but this is the
like
thing. This is the thing. Yeah. Let's go back to the materializer, the 3D printer. You know, let's go back to it. Let's look at it. What does it do? It basically takes one material, and from that material, it creates whatever you want. The only cost of it is energy. That's it. And you need the basic material. That's it.
Wait, like, do you mean that? So, okay, like, for sustainability wise, for human being, as of our current state, as of our current form, for us to survive, it's water. Basically, it's water, food. Exactly. Right? Like, without excluding any luxury and stuff. Like, you mean that with the power of 3D printer, like something like that, would it just ultimately create 1,000 times more supply than demand of those products?
Exactly. Like there's a couple of barriers. One of the biggest barrier is absolutely we're on one planet where we're not living in abundance on this planet. You know, if you look at, Elon Musk, for example, that's what he's dreaming about, man. He's dreaming about those things. He's dreaming about, like we're fighting over resources on one planet when the universe is so huge. Like, what are we doing?
Right.
Are you crazy? Like, we're killing each other over what? Like, that's what he's thinking about. That's what he's talking about. That's what all sci-fi is talking about.
Amazing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But okay.
So that's one of the biggest barriers, like how do we get resources and how do we move them fast enough? And those are two things, like, right? Logistics. How do we move things fast enough? How do we get it fast enough? Imagine in a world where you could move any material, in any speed you wanted to. Let's say you ate a sandwich, you went to the bathroom, that whole ecosystem of it becoming a plant, growing some wheat, making it, if that's made in a second and a half, I mean, that's it. That's the point, right? Abundance. It's just, we're too slow. Our technology is too slow at the moment. That's the point. When technology goes faster, those are the things that, I'll give you an example. About 25 years ago, I got my first cell phone. And, calling on a phone, it was so luxury. It was so luxurious. Talking to somebody on a phone was so luxury. And I had a cell phone. It was huge. It was like, but the iPhone's kind of getting big too. But yeah, it was huge.
We're going back to history.
Yeah, and my phone would last for 2 hours. It was like a really old phone. It was an old Philips, and it was amazing. I had this phone. It was mega huge, and communicating over the net with somebody. We didn't have that. That was luxury. I would have to pay so much money to communicate over the internet with someone else, or over a network with someone else. That was the phone network. I would pay, almost like 50 cents of a dollar for a minute of talking on the phone. Today, you and me are talking on the phone for free. It's abundance. We have communication online in abundance. This is one of the points.
So how does that make the humanity better? Like in terms of, mind, in terms of like everything, just how does that make us better? The fact that we have this phone technology for free, no cost.
Well,
how is that affecting us today?
I would say better is happier. That's better, if you look at 100 years ago, the amount of worries you had then, like what could happen, etc. I mean, it was dangerous to live 100 years ago.
Right.
I mean, you could die over the winter. You know what I mean? Like, winter's coming.
That's so real. Like.
Yeah. And you just die. You just like, oh, I didn't survive this winter. Shit, I died. Game over.
So,
but
ultimately, I guess 100 years ago, the goal of the humanity at that point was probably to make
survive,
like safer. Yeah. Survive and create a safe environment.
Yeah, exactly.
And from now, I guess so. It's all exists in the same road, I guess, like extension of safety. Where does it going? So that's,
yeah. Well, basically, if we look at these fundamental human needs, it's a whole list. It's a million of them, and some of them are not only materialistic. They're like, for example, a human need is communication, talking to someone. You know what I mean? What we're doing right now. We have that in abundance today. But I'm not going to say that we didn't have it in abundance before too. Like talking to somebody that you liked, as soon as urbanization happened, that was kind of cleared out, Before that, maybe you were in a village with people you didn't like and you had to talk to people you hated. You know what I mean? So like these are the things that has been taken care of, and more of them are being taken care of, and more of them are being taken for granted.
Right.
Then the question that you asked last time was, so what do we do when we have everything?
Exactly.
Right?
Hold on. So
Yeah.
I want to make one point before we move on to the next topic,
Yeah.
which is exactly that. But basically, from what we've been talking, it all makes sense that, right? Like right now, so I guess ultimately us as a humanity, where we are going to is to make us feel better, basically, right? Like and then I guess right now, make us feel better is luxury. Like it's not something that everybody has right now at the moment in a macro. Like, you know, like make us feel better in a sense that like, even from like a basic stuff, like even from like I kind of lost myself. Hold on.
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
Yeah. So, right. I just wanted to make this point because it's kind of interesting for me to think that, because, you know, as much as we, I guess, demonize the fact that you hate your life or that you feel miserable, like, you know, those are the things that, I don't know, like to some degree, it might be still luxury. Like, I guess this is just the process of humanity where we have a balance of between having a lot in some things and not having enough for some things, and then that really still puts us in a state of like misery still, right? Because feel good is still kind of luxury, like I said. I don't know if I explored in a best way I could have, but anyway, so keep going.
No, you're good. I understand you.
Yeah, I don't know, like there's something interesting in that I wanted to explore a little bit more, but I can't come up with the right path to it. Interesting angle to talk about it. But anyway, so back to your point, now then what is our motive at that point? If we do happen to have everything that we want, we need, like what is our driver from that point? How
what happens?
Us as a humanity, what happens?
This is the point. And really, this is one of the places why I think that Silicon Valley, Silicon Valley and, New York and, places like Sweden, like Iceland, like Norway, like places that somehow they've taken care of the basic needs of humanity. They take care of the basic needs of humanity. And Holland as well, really Holland. I would say Holland is a very, very powerful player in this too. They have taken care of the basic needs of humanity. And from there, a lot of ideas come.
Right.
So these people, they don't have to worry about eating today. They don't have to worry about, like doing something or fixing or this and that. So what they do instead of their time is they invent new things. They come up with new ideas. They create tech startups. They create unicorn startups. They create, this is why we don't have Silicon Valley in, a place that's extremely poor. And the reason for that is that the basic needs are not taken care of. And when the basic needs are not taken care of, people are focused on that. So what I mean by that is when you have these abundances, then all of a sudden you get really curious and you start working your curiosity and you start wondering about things. And then you start thinking about solutions. And then you start thinking about like, okay, well, what more can I do? And so that doesn't mean that, you can't be poor, hungry, and broke and not be creative. Of course, you will be very creative if you're like in a how do you say, one of those places where bakiyashiki janakute, how do you say one of those places when you're in a room, like a panic room, you know, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're doing one of these scare games or something like that, like when you're pressured to a certain point where, okay, well, I need to eat, so
Right.
then you get creative and you find a way for it. But that's not curiosity, that's instinct.
Right. So so one word that came up in my mind what you were describing is like sustainability, right? Like sustainability in production. Like when you're abundant to the place where, and we're talking about just general, like probably the large group of people, but it definitely depends on each individual, like how you use those facts as your utility. You can still be very hungry and very creative, even if you're broke, whatever. Like you just have to find what works for you. I guess good narration for yourself. So this is not to say that this is the definitive fact that applies for everybody.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
for large group of people, it's most likely that we see what we would see is gonna probably look something like when you are coming from a place of abundance, you don't necessarily have to focus too much on the survival tomorrow versus create, like spending the same energy onto creating something for the humanity, right?
Yeah, you're right. You know, like this is the point. Like when you're, whether you're broke or rich or whatever it is, when you have, you know, you can be creative to solve any kind of problem that happens in your life, and you will be very creative. But creation, you know, it's not really about your thought, it's about trying, right? So you, when you're in a place of abundance, you can try so many things. You can try over and over and over and over again, go any direction you want, and you don't have a factor saying no to you. You don't have a factor holding you in a certain situation saying, hey, you know what, you have to do this within this frame because this frame allows you to eat. You go outside of this frame, that doesn't give you any food, so don't go outside of there. So
I think you're right. I think because it's cheaper, and I think because it's less risk, it, like the function, the very function wouldn't change in terms of like our capability and creativity, but it just gives us better access to creativity. It just gives us more tool, gives us more access to achieving faster and having more resources to achieve this. I get it. I see.
Yeah, and it allows you to try. You know, I would say 90% of creativity is trying something. You know, you try, you fail, you try, you fail, you try, you fail, and then one day you'll make it. And that's, you know, 10% is the thought that you had in the beginning, and that thought is going to change so much. It's going to change. It's going to change you. It's going to change everything, and that's the process of creating.
So let's talk about something else. Actually, it's still related to what we've been talking about.
Okay.
What do we pay for? How do you think money is going to work in that environment? Well, like now it's like supply and demand, but
now you get like rewarded from the trade or the in between. Enjoying the process is vital. Ibs, I agree. Great, man. Yeah, it's vital. Yeah, you're 100% right. Well, now we're, you know, we make money from trade, the in between, you know, like the effort that we made, you know, that, and I would say that in the future, I don't know, I'm not sure how it's going to work, But if you look at Star Trek, for example,
Right.
the reward system in Star Trek comes from the things that you've actually done. You know, you get rewarded from doing things, meaning that if you do things well, you're put in a position, in a situation where you get to do more.
Right. Okay.
And that is kind of similar to today, but the money factor isn't there. The human needs factor isn't there. You get to choose. Either you can do a lot in your life, or you can do nothing with your life. And that is one of the biggest point, one of the things that you talk about as well, you know, like life is what you make it, right? Like if you do something with it, then you get somewhere, and if you don't, you can waste your life sitting in a couch looking at the ceiling, you know, if you wanted to. So
right. And I don't think there's a demon in neither side. You just have, like, if you want to do it, but just don't fucking complain. That's just
yeah.
And
Got it.
I think that kind of thinking is still socially not so accepted. And I think it has to do with where we are in the process of humanity too. Because, you know, it's still certainly encouraged to have a purpose in life and produce something in life and stuff like that, right? Which I'm super big on. Like I'm believing on that because I have my own reason, which is kind of long, so I'm not gonna go over it now. But yeah, I think practically, like, that's just emotional part that makes us do that. But practically, like, it's just how it is, and you don't necessarily have to attach meaning to them, because meanings are things that come from our emotions, like our cognitive thinking, wanting to understand what's going on, right? So yeah, I get that. And I think, I guess to your point, when we are in a place of such an abundance where we don't have to produce by technical term, like that's the moment when we actually become able to pursue whatever the life we want to pursue without the guilt, without any judgment.
Oh my God. Can you imagine how much you do out of necessity in your life
right now?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think it must be 80% of the world's population are going to a job, and at some point during their workday, they feel like they're doing something out of necessity rather than doing something out of curiosity and joy, and because they like it, you know. And that's one of the things. I think that in the future, we get to do more of what we want rather than more of what we don't want. And I think if you look at history, this is something that is definitely getting more and more true every single moment. You know, 100 years ago, you couldn't even marry who you wanted. That your parents would choose that for you. You know what I mean?
Right. But still kind of, well, I think it's not going to be accurate if we make any prediction at this point. I get that, but I'm just like, I can't help wondering what the world would look like in that place, like where you absolutely don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Like that's,
you would have antennas. You would have antennas, like 3 eyes, 1 eye here, like you know,
free.
you would be like.
So now I think this was very interesting. Now I want to talk about honestly, right? I see the 3 emojis right there, but yeah, that's how I feel. So finally, I guess before closing up, because I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go. But before closing up, I want to ask you something else.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, let's talk about this in the context of today's business a little bit. So, you know, abundance so basically, so from until now, we've been talking about is how demand and supply works today, where there's a imbalance between those two, right? As of now. And there's arbitrage. That's why people pay for what they want to have.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like in this very era, it makes sense. But like, there's also, like in terms of, you know, good practice in business, right? Like you kind of have to create this. Okay, have you read the book Think Your Economy?
Thinker what?
Think Your Economy.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gary from Gary V.
Okay.
So there's this book, Think Your Economy, where it talks a lot about just give. And ultimately that's gonna make your business the strongest, because businesses are about human relationships, right?
Probably makes you the happiest too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, so that's that too, right? Like when we talk about future, so okay, here's one thing I connect to future with is mental health too, right?
Yeah.
Like future is happiness. History.
Oh yeah, feeling like you have a bright future ahead of you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And the history and the past I associate with, I don't know if unhappy is a right word to say, but I guess like a scarcity to some degree, which we talked about earlier. So given that, so Think Your Economy. Sorry, I kind of lost myself. But anyway, so my question to you about this was, I agree with that. The businesses is about human relations, and then you wanna, for the business practice purpose even, to be profitable in the end, there's a certain degree of happiness that needs to, I guess a goodness, right? Emotionally, like a goodness that needs to be attached to the business. I don't know if I'm being too naive for this, for saying this, but this was kind of the summary of the Think Your Economy as well, where
I see.
Would say, right? Like Gary would say, like don't look for their wallets. Like don't treat them as they are your wallet. Like, you know, like don't look at them as a wallet. Look at them as a human.
Yeah.
Create relationships and then be
like
good.
The currency is smiles.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and I believe that, but how can we do that in a practice level? Like in a
practical level?
Yeah, like how can we do that? What do you think?
Well, it's kind of tough, isn't it? I mean, you know, like when you have a startup, the first things you think about is like money in, money now, you know, and that doesn't really allow, in the beginning, I would say in a startup, you probably feel like, okay, maybe in the beginning you go like, okay, well, I will overwork to just give a really good job, and then I'll receive, and then after that, later, I'll lower the amount of effort and I'll get better. Not only will I will get better, that's why I will lower the effort, or I will like be able to do things faster, or etc., you know, to get the same amount of reward, right? And Gary Vee brags about that cause. He's a multi-millionaire. Bang. Yeah. Yeah, he is. Totally. And I would say, in reality, you know, sorry, not in reality, but in practicality, if you look at us as human beings, and you know, you want to give, but a lot of people, they have this thing, they want to give to get, you know, even karma. The first time I heard karma, you know, like, I'm from Sweden, you got to give to, you know, you give and later you will get. Like, what's the difference, right? In the end of the day, it's just ego, you know. It's still the ego's there, right? But I think what Gary's talking about as well is like, if you can give, just give and give and give in abundance, you know, like give as much as you can to as many people as you got, you know, try to really be a giver. it's very, very hard and very, very unlikely, you know, that somehow those people that you gave everything to will not take care of you in the end and reward you for what you've done. I mean, it's very, very unlikely. And especially if that giving becomes an addiction to them, but if they, not an addiction, but if they become dependent on your giving them, then especially then that will be something that they cannot help but reward you for what you do. So I love that mindset. I love that mindset to give and give and give and give, but not only for the fact of ego. A lot of people, they give and then expect something back in return, you know, and that's not what giving is.
Right.
Yeah. And then the second thing that Gary Vee is not talking about, you got to have to give. You can't give unless you have. So you have to create some kind of resources that you have to give. And if that's knowledge, then that's knowledge. If that's stuff, then that's stuff. If that's, something else, feeling, love, joy, happiness, whatever that is,
right,
then that's that, you know. But you got to have to give. So you got to focus on yourself a little bit as well, you know, to make sure that you have enough to supply.
See, I think it comes back to that same, and by the way, I think Gary actually talks about that. He says that he diversified businesses to create income streams so that he doesn't have to charge his followers, for example. I think it comes back to that, like the talks of the future we've been talking about today. Like, I guess that would get rid of this scarcity thinking, right? Like we still suffer. Like it's still not the luxury. It's still the luxury that for us to be who we really want to become. So ultimate happiness. Okay, so I heard this quote which I shared yesterday.
Oh, cool! I want to hear this.
So the ultimate happiness is when you know that your life matters because you have many things to give, or because you have something to give, because you grow so much that giving is no longer painful. And I agree with that. Like that's probably the ultimate version of how someone can be, right? In this earth. But I guess that comes back to the point from earlier. Like it's still the luxury, like for you to be in that state, which is going to be possible in the future because there's going to be abundance, right? Of how much we want to give to others, how much, basically what we see as like the survival needs won't be there anymore.
Yeah.
But today it's still luxury. Today we still suffer from achieving that place, which is ultimate happiness. Yeah. So I guess comes back to earlier what we've been talking about. I guess the ultimate direction or the purpose of where we are heading as a humanity is to make us the happiest person we can be, the happiest people, right?
It's all about happiness. Yeah, that's it.
And then
I agree.
The form of being the ultimate happiness is to be able to give, right? At any time we want, at any time we feel like we want to give. Yeah. I mean, really, like really deep meaning of life, or deep meaning of happiness. I think it comes back to that. Like ties back to how much you can give to others. But that's not something that everybody can achieve because we don't have enough to give.
So you mean that you mean that you can give anything that you have in abundance, and that can be anything. It can be feelings, it can be, you know, like, yeah, you're right. Like I totally think so as well. Like if you're just happy, you can give happiness because you have it in abundance, right? Like, or anything like that. Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. But probably that will be another currency we're gonna give out. I don't know, like
that would be great, right?
Money, like when we don't have the basic needs that we need to buy anymore, like in the future, maybe the way I pay you is by giving you a little bit of happiness or giving you a little bit of.
That would be so funny. Could you imagine the beggars? They would be like on the streets and they would sit there with a cup. Give me a smile, goddammit. Give me a smile. Smile at me. You know.
I mean, they can do that already.
Like, sure, wait.
Right.
Here you go.
So
what?
I mean,
That'd
that
be so
would be
funny.
really cool. So what did he say?
He said the bird is giving his gift
so
to the
cute.
world by
That's
singing
so cute.
even without
Oh
knowing
my god,
about
that
it.
is so cute.
Dang.
But so
Dudes.
see, I'm gonna summarize today's conversation. But basically, what I've learned today, I think, is that the ultimate direction of where we are heading as a humanity, the progress we're trying to make, I guess, ultimate destination where we're wanting is a place of abundance, and is a place of, I guess, people having capability to give to each other.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, and like in the form of, it could be in the form of, like, I can't even know in the form of what, like in the form of emotion, excitement, because there's no need.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
you to make
like
money
you said, I mean, I think you can give anything, and you can start giving right now, you know? Like, that's the point. You can start giving right now, and you can give anything you want, and whatever you have in abundance, you know? And one of the cool thing that Yves is talking about as well, I have, you know, just let's say something about Yves here. You know, he has an online course that he's doing, and you should follow him. He's a pretty cool guy. Yves, like Yves Saint Laurent. And the thing is that he's talking about is, like, you can write things down that you're really good at, and things that you have 10 years or more in experience of. And just, you know, having 10 years experience of something, that's, to me, having an abundance of something. And you always have 10 years of experience of something in this world. You will always find something that you have 10 years of experience in, unless you're 9, because then you don't. But
maybe 9 and 11 months, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you can find that and then start giving it, like Gary Vee talked about, you know, like that would be really good.
No, I mean, that's
a
very
good
practical,
idea.
but I wanted to kind of like end it with like a mind-blowing status, which is like
Go for it.
Creativity right now, which I already kind of mentioned, but I don't know if I drew the like a mind-blowing picture, but to me it was kind of mind-blowing. I never thought about it like that. I mean, it's just even just the picture of like the imagination of like getting rid of the currency, the getting rid of the meaning of currency.
It's all gonna go.
Society. Like it's I feel like that. I just like don't even know how that's gonna look like. I don't know.
It might even be, the currency might even be dopamine in the future. Who knows? You know.
Dopamine, right? Because
yeah,
like,
it might even be dopamine.
Pleased.
Yeah, who knows?
Like you were desperate for the emotion because you're,
yeah, exactly. But like, just look at the world. Like, I mean, 1,000 years ago, people didn't have currency. They had like stuff like a sheep, a house, you know, labor force, whatever. That was their currency. And now that's like changing. So people have like, then, you know, money started, and then after that, you know, like the next currency might be digital, and then after that, the next, you know, in the future might be dopamine. Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
The big step from digital currency to dopamine. But
amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So Thomas, thank you
this
very much for being on the show today. We had a really interesting conversation. I'm gonna put this up on my YouTube as well so people can see it there.